Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with the Simon Says card kit for May 2019. So as always, I'm going to do my 5 cards, 1 kit, using the contents within. I am going to give just a small reveal, just so that you can see the stamp set, and all the beautiful images in this. This is a 6x8 stamp set, and it is called Delicate Flowers. There's beautiful lines in this, so this is great if you like to color your images, whether that's with alcohol markers, watercolor markers, or anything else you can think of. The kit also did come with 3 alcohol ink pearls, and it came with 2 pieces of Yupo that I've already cut in half, and also 2 pieces of the shimmer alcohol paper as well. This beautiful pattern paper from Moda Scrap, it is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. So I'll be using that, and as always, you do get some inspiration for your card kit just to get you going. So this first section, I've really sped this up, and what you're going to see here is me just playing with the alcohol inks. Now, I usually put down a mat when I use my alcohol inks, or, you know, lots of paper towels, but I do tend to get stuff all over. So I had Sol, I believe it was Scrappina, she used a box. Brilliant idea. So I embraced that. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm using a box base for these, and then I've just put some paper towels in there in case I get crazy between the alcohol blending solution and the inks. I will say, when it comes to the alcohol pearl inks, one, you must constantly shake them. So every time you pick them up, shake, shake, shake. You do want to make sure that you do that, because the mica in there does settle quickly. I do like the alcohol pearls on plain paper, whether that's the Yupo paper or whether that's the alcohol ink paper, the plain white. I do like the look of them. I am not saying that I don't like the shimmer or the glitter. I'm not quite sure what they're calling that, alcohol ink paper. But I don't know. It's definitely not necessary for the pearls. I know it was probably designed, matter of fact, I know this, you know, with the plain alcohol inks in mind, so that you can have a level of those being pearlized, so to speak. But I do like, I did work with the shimmer paper, and you'll see the color combinations that I do create on there. I am using my Ranger heat tool. I'm not using my heat gun. I'm using my heat tool. It kind of disperses the air a little bit more than my Hero Arts heat tool, because that's more direct. I did not have any problems with my Yupo paper warping in any way. So that was fine. And I do like to dry in between, because I like the dots. I don't know how to explain it. When it comes to alcohol inks, what I'm finding is I like it when there's dots. Does that make sense? I like the splatter look. I like the bubbles. I don't like it to be completely blended. So by drying it in between, I can get that effect better. Again, that's what I find that works for me. Again, I do like the paper, the shimmer paper for alcohol, you know, the alcohol ink shimmer paper, but I just don't, I don't know. I guess I still have to play around with it. But as always, beautiful effects. I did not use any of those pieces within one of my 5 cards. So what I like to do is, when you have stuff or items like this within my kit, I like to make the backgrounds. I find that very relaxing, to just make backgrounds and create cards from that. I do have a video where I did that. I just find that relaxing. So I was having a lot of fun creating the backgrounds and just playing around, seeing the different ways that I can get these alcohol inks to move and to merge together, so to speak. So for our first card, now I'm going to set those aside. I'm going to let those dry. So for our first card, I just wanted to dive right into the beautiful pattern paper. I pulled out some rounded rectangle frame dies from my stash, and they are stitched, and I cut two. One out of the pattern paper that was solid. I absolutely love that shade. It's like a taupe or brown. Yeah, I'm good with brown. And then I also chose the one with the small butterflies. I thought it really accented the solid piece of cardstock that I chose for the very back. I am going to prop this panel up using some fun foam. And then I will actually set that, down onto the bottom right hand corner. It's almost, I wanted to create a shadow with the other panel that's in the back. I'm going to use the same brown pattern paper or solid pattern paper from the kit for my sentiment. And the sentiment that I'm going to use simply says, "Thinking of you." And I'm going to use my white Brutus Monroe alabaster embossing powder for this. So I did make sure that I prepped my cardstock using my EK Success powder tool. And then I used my Simon Says stamp clear ink. And then I'm just going to apply my embossing powder, and then I will heat set that. Once that is heat set, I will use the Simon Says banner dies. At least I call them that. These are the dies that will cut your sentiment and give you some straight lines every time. I do find them the best. It's what works to keep my line straight. I've tried scissors, I've tried cutters, but this for me, these banners are a dream. They're very simple, and they have many sizes, down to, I believe, just under 1/4 of an inch. So I've trimmed that down, and I fishtailed one end, and I'm going to set that right across along where the butterflies are. And I'm going to set that using my liquid adhesive, my art glitter glue. I'm going to grab some of my Nouveau drops. Now these are the vintage drops, so when they dry with a beautiful satin finish. These are called vintage chocolate chip. So they were a perfect match to the brown that I'm using for the sentiment and the background. I'm just testing this. I thought something felt weird, so I just want to make sure it wasn't clogged. And the bottle is very soft. It's a different bottle than their original ones. So for card number 2, I fell in love with the cover of the pattern paper. So yes, I fussy cut the name Moda Scrap. I guess I took that time. And I'm going to use the balance of this, and I want to use as much of it as I can. So I have this border, the Scalloped Border die from Simon Says, and I'm going to set that as far down as I can go. I want to make sure I use the majority of this. I am going to be creating a landscape card, and it is going to be set. All of my cards for today are set onto a standard A2 size card base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. The majority will be top folding. However, this one will be a side folding so that it can be a landscape. So it's right about here you now notice that I have an awesome Band-Aid on my finger. Yes, I had to edit a complete section out. Here's a clue. Do not, those scissors that I have are absolutely phenomenal. They are by Fun Stamper's Journey, and they are the largest size shears. They are definitely non-stick Teflon, but they definitely have an extremely sharp edge. And I'm not sure what I was thinking, but I did a number on my finger, and a lot of this video had to be edited. I didn't want any of you to see that. This is not horror card making at its finest. But I do have an awesome bandage going on there, so I do apologize for that. But we must continue crafting, right? Right. So let's get caught up. I embossed my sentiment. I used the sentiment that says, "Thanks for always being there," onto a separate piece of cardstock. I did use my gold embossing powder. I'm going to prop that up using some double-sided fun foam. And I did use my vintage photo ink to go around the edge, just to make sure that sentiment stood out. Because I did want that dimension. I did prop up also the panel that I used from the cover of the pattern paper, and I propped that up as well. And I'm using my Rose Water Nouveau Jewel Drops, gently tapping the card down so that they will level out. So for card number 3, I am using the Gina K Amalgam Warm Glow. I'm really, the more and more I work with her amalgam inks, the more I am becoming a fan of them. So I've chosen some images, some of the other images, not the large ones, but like the buds and the leaves. So I've chosen those, and I'm using again the Warm Glow to stamp those in. And what I like, she has a couple: Warm Glow, Skeleton Leaves, Whisper, and Barely There. These are great colors, special tones to do no line coloring. And it can be alcohol markers and it can be watercolors, either or. Her inks are for both. And I'm really liking them. So I did pull out my Altenew alcohol markers, and I'm just coloring in some of my images. Now, I won't show you all of the images, but I am showing you some. I am not a perfectionist when it comes to, I'm not a perfectionist, period. But when it comes to alcohol markers, they are something that I'm still practicing with and working with. And I will continue to keep practicing. I haven't gained the technique yet, but that's okay. Again, the more I work with them, the better. The better, the more comfortable that I'll get with them. I am very comfortable with the Altenew alcohol markers. I like the way they feel in my hand, and I do like the fact that they take out the thought process. One of the things that I so struggle with alcohol markers is thinking what goes with what blends with what. You have a certain brand that you've got to figure out the numbering system. I have trouble with that. Love math, but have trouble with that. There's other systems where they're just names. So at least what I find with Altenew, when you get them, you get the set of 4. So you know what 4 go together. I find that very helpful. So, and again, that's just me. Because again, I do struggle with these. So I do want the thought process for me to be just easier on my brain. But enough of that. So you can see I fussy cut out my images, and I have them setting there. I also grabbed one of my alcohol panels and I cut it down. I just like that that cloud wave coming up. I'm using a section of the pattern paper with the dots, and I'm going to make sure that that sits along these two pieces of paper come together. So I've got the alcohol ink paper. You're probably hearing that paper that I'm rubbing on the mic there. Sorry about that. And then that beautiful background paper with the buds. So again, I only colored the flower buds that were from the stamp set, and then that is the pattern paper that I used towards the back. When I chose my colors for my alcohol markers, I did want to make sure that they were close to the, what do you call it? The image of that background paper. And as you can see, I'm just laying out and gluing and securing all of these pieces. I'm cutting some of the leaves down. I'm shortening some of the flower buds. You can tell I have this kind of S going on when it comes to the sprig, the floral sprig that I'm building here. And again, I want that to come out, and then I also wanted it to dip down onto that polka dot pattern. Now, you could have cut the polka dot pattern down, but I really did like the thickness of that, and the softness that it gave to the card. I'm going to grab one of the smaller of the sentiments from the stamp set, and I'm choosing Adore You to simply stamp that on the right hand side just below the dots. I am going to use my gold embossing powder from Recollection, and I will heat set that. And yes, now you can see that the bandage now has a blue strip on it. I was protecting it. I didn't want to don't ask. I was determined to get these cards done. Extremely determined. So it was a little leery there for a minute, but that's okay. We must create on, right? Okay. So I'm using my art glitter glue, and I'm going to set that down onto my standard A2 size card base. Again, this will be a landscape card because it will be a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, but it will fold to the side. So once that's set, I'm going to bend my card base in half and use my paper creaser to make sure I have a nice crease along the top of my card base. I'm going to come in with my Spectrum Noir sparkle or glitter pen, and I'm just going to make sure I shake that up. I'm not quite sure if this one's about to go out there, but I believe there's still a little bit in there. So I just wanted to add just a little bit of sparkle to the rosebuds only, just to give them some glimmer. So for card number 4, we're going to do some stamping. I am using my watercolor paper. This is actually my, I'm actually using watercolor paper from Arteza. I've cut that down, and I'm going to do some masking. I'm also going to use my VersaFine black ink. When I find I do watercoloring, I do tend to grab for my VersaFine. I do like that it keeps that crisp black line, and I'm able to stamp very cleanly with it. I have used others, but for some reason this is just the one that I always do grab for. So I've stamped my first image. I did cut a mask using the Simon Says masking paper. Set that in place. Now I've set my 2 other flowers down, and then I will be able to mask them as well, because now I want to put my greens all around when it comes to my images. So, and it's just one specific green that I wanted to use. This is the one that's larger, kind of larger in size, and it's got the vein down the center of the leaf. So I'm just playing with the location here. I do know that I will be cutting this panel down. And reason is, when I have those sheets, they're 9 by 12, the Arteza pads. So I always just quarter them. So that makes them 4 1/2 by 6, and I get 4 pieces from each sheet. So one pad will last you for a nice long time, which is great. But again, they are larger, so they give you room to create what you're creating. So you can either make a larger size card, or you know, just cut that down to fit it onto a standard size. So you can see I have everything stamped. Now I'm going to gently peel away the masks, and you can see that I have some beautiful clear images. I was having a problem with that one. I have my flowers to the front and all of the greenery to the back. Just a little bit peeking up the top and the sides. So I grabbed my worn lipstick, aged mahogany, old paper, and I believe forest moss. And I'm going to put water down first, and then I'm just going to drop my colors in. I do want it to be darker towards the center, but I also want the colors to do what they do in the water. I do enjoy I am not a watercolorist, but I do enjoy using the distress inks for what I'm doing here when I'm just dropping. It's the way that they dry, it's the way that they move. They give those blooms. So I think that's what they're called. I don't know, I could be wrong. It's almost like a bubble was there and then it popped. So you've got these areas. You can add water to these and get those spots. But one of the things that I love doing when it comes to the distress inks, or really any stamping ink that's water reactive. So I do that with the distress. I also do it with my Stampin' Up inks. They're the two that I really like doing this type of technique with. And that's the splattering. So again, I always wait until everything's dry. And again, I'm putting my water down first. I'm adding a layer of my light color, and then I'm just tapping the dark color into those areas so that they will spread out on their own. I don't want to create the shading. I want the water and the inks to do all of that work, because that's how I watercolor. I love to watch it move, like watching those petals just separate. I just think it's cool looking. Now you can also notice that I'm forgetting a petal. Yes, I did finally notice that petal after I thought I'm showing you, oh look, it's done. Yeah, it's not. And I do realize that. I'm like, oh my goodness. So you will see in the next segment that I do cover up, get color into that petal. So yeah. So here we go with the splattering. So I'm splattering with all the colors. I wanted to make sure that it was dry first. So I'm using the warm lipstick. I'm using the aged mahogany. I'm mixing those together. I'm then going in with the old paper. I'm going in with the forest moss, and I'm just splattering away. I'm okay that it's going over the flowers. What I also splatter with as well is clear water, because then I wait a few moments and then I will bring a towel over, and then it just creates just a little bit of texture on the areas that I did paint. So the sentiment I just had to use was "You are beautiful to me." And again, I'm going to use my VersaFine black ink and my stamp positioner tool to make sure that I do get a good impression. I will stamp it again, just so I know that I have a crisp, clear, solid black sentiment. I did use some fun foam to prop this card up onto my standard A2 size card base. I'm going to grab my vintage chocolate chip drops again, and I'm just going to put some big drops. I'm going to enlarge these. I figured, okay, I'll put a bunch of dots. No, I eventually just mix all these together and give me one big dot. And there you go. And it dried beautifully. I did let this card set for 48 hours because of the size of the drops. These aren't the normal size that will be taken care of in 24. So I think that one's my favorite. So for card number 5 and our final card, I did grab another one of my alcohol panels, and I only cut a section from it, and I did use one of my stitched frame rectangle dies. I grabbed the other, somewhat, it looks like a watercolor wash going across this pattern paper here, and I am going to trim that piece down to 4 by 5 1/4, and then I'm going to trim a piece of the pattern paper with those beautiful leaves to be 5 1/4 by 2 inches. I'm sitting here thinking about it. Do I want to go to 2? Do I want to go to 2 1/4? Do I want to go smaller? And I'm just going to layer those two pieces on top of each other. I think with all of the green and the green that's in the alcohol ink that I used, I think they all blend well together, and then having that blue pearlized alcohol ink, that just helps it to pop a little bit more. I am going to prop this panel up using some double-sided foam tape, and I'm going to set that off to the right hand side. For my sentiment, I used a piece of brown cardstock and my white Brutus Monroe alabaster embossing powder, and I chose the sentiment, "You're amazing." And I just want that to go straight across the top, but towards the right again. And I'm just going to use my scissors carefully, yes, carefully, to trim that so that it's even with that panel. For some reason, I kept on putting my cards together without folding my card bases. I thought it was different. Again, I'm going to use my art glitter glue, and I'm going to set that down onto my standard A2 size card base. So these were the 5 projects that I made using the Simon Says May 2019 card kit. I do hope you enjoyed them. All the products that I used for today's cards will be linked down below. And if you have any questions, leave those down below as well, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If I should forget something in the product list, please make sure you leave that in a comment, and I'll make sure I get back to you and give you that information. I want to thank you so much for stopping by today and watching my video for today. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell because you don't want to miss the next video. I hope everyone's having a great day. Remember, take care, but always remember what's most important. Always be creative.